I have been coming home to a blind woman with nothing to offer. And they told me to be patient. 5 years. You cannot do anything for a man who has goals and ambitions. What did you give me? Tell me.
5 whole years of my life I wasted on you.
They said she was already finished, a partially blind woman with no job, no money, and a husband who stood in front of his entire family and pointed at her like she was the problem. They said Michael was patient for staying as long as he did. They said a woman who cannot see the road ahead has no future worth waiting for. And on the morning, he grabbed her car keys, walked out of her life, and drove straight to the house of her own younger sister, the sister she had spent her whole life protecting. It seemed like they were right. She had nothing. She could barely see.
Michael, where did you go?
And not one person on that street stopped to help her. But what they never calculated, what not one of them ever saw coming, was what God had already quietly placed in her path 2 hours before any of this happened. Something so small that nobody noticed it. Something so ordinary that everyone around her had ignored it completely. This is the story of Ava.
We are here. You are okay. We are here with you.
We are so sorry. We are so sorry this happened.
It starts on the worst morning of her life. Ava was the kind of woman who told the truth even when the truth cost her something. She was not a woman who hid behind pretty words or soft half-explanations. When things were hard, she said they were hard. When she was afraid, she admitted it. And when Michael came into her life, warm and confident and full of the kind of promises that feel like sunlight on your face, she did not let the excitement of a new love make her dishonest.
Joke's on me.
She sat him down before their relationship became anything serious, and she told him everything. She told him about her eyes. She told him that her sight had been deteriorating for years, slowly and steadily, the way a candle burns down rather than goes out all at once. She told him that the doctors had explained it clearly. The condition would continue to worsen, and there was no treatment she had been able to afford that would reverse what was already happening. She described what she could see and what she could not. She described the blurred edges and the distances that disappeared into uncertainty. She told him all of it, sitting across from him with her hands folded on the table, watching his face as carefully as her failing eyes would allow. And then she said the hardest thing.
I need you to understand what you are agreeing to. I would rather you leave now than leave later. And I promise you, I will not hold it against you.
The room was quiet for a moment. Michael looked at her, and then he reached across that table and took both of her hands in his.
Ava, I did not fall in love with your eyes. I fell in love with you. The way you think, the way you speak, the way you move through this world. Your condition is something we face together. Whatever comes next does not come to you alone. I need you to understand that.
She held those words in her heart like something sacred. And on a bright and beautiful Saturday morning in Lagos, Michael stood before God and before both of their families and made his promise formal. He stood at that altar and swore, in front of everyone who loved Ava, that he would never leave her, that her blindness changed nothing about his commitment, that she would face every difficult day of her life with him standing beside her. The church was full. Sandra was there, sitting in one of the front rows, watching her older sister get married with what appeared to be genuine joy on her face. The mother was there, friends were there, the whole community was there.
Ava, even if your eyes close forever, I will still be standing right here.
That is my promise before God. I am choosing you, Ava. Blind or not, before God and this family holy, I will never walk away from you.
Everyone heard Michael make that promise. Everyone heard him. And God heard him. He broke every word of it. For a while, things were decent between them. Money was always tight, and Lagos demanded more than either of them had, but they were building something. Ava prayed over their home every morning before Michael woke up. She managed what little they had with careful and precise hands. She endured the hard seasons the way people endure them when they have made a promise before God, with gritted teeth and genuine faith and the stubborn belief that the morning was coming. But something in Michael was changing. Or maybe it had always been there underneath, and the early warmth had simply been a performance he eventually grew too tired to maintain. The distance started small, a coldness that appeared without warning, silences that stretched too long, a general withdrawal that Ava noticed but could not name, and then the cruelty began. It started at home, small things. A sharp sigh when Ava reached for a glass and her hand missed it. A rough correction when she moved too slowly through a room. Short, impatient words when she asked him to read something for her, because the print was too small for her failing eyes to make out. These were things she could dismiss on individual days. Everyone had bad days. She told herself this repeatedly. She kept telling herself this. But then came the family gatherings. And the gatherings were where Michael showed her who he had truly become. The first time it happened, Ava told herself she had misheard. They were at a cousin's celebration. A large compound, full of relatives, the specific kind of loud happiness that Lagos families generate when they come together. And in the middle of a conversation she was not part of, she heard Michael's voice carrying across the compound, saying that marriage to a half-blind woman was not something any man should be expected to endure indefinitely. She heard quiet laughter in response. She sat very still and told herself she had misheard. She had not misheard. It became a pattern she could no longer explain away. Michael would bring her to these gatherings and then perform his frustration for every relative willing to listen. He told people she was holding him back. He told people that her blindness was a burden he had not fully understood when he agreed to it. He said, in rooms full of people who knew her and loved her, that a half-blind wife was a useless wife who had nothing to offer the future he deserved. He said these things while Ava was present, while she could hear every single word. He said them with the casual confidence of a man who had stopped caring whether she was hurt by them. The worst part, the part that broke something deep inside Ava that took a very long time to even identify, was the nodding. Some of the relatives nodded along. Some of them looked at Michael with sympathy, the way you look at someone carrying an unreasonable burden. And some of them looked at Ava with the particular kind of pity that is more humiliating than anger, because pity implies that your situation is permanent and your dignity is optional. Ava would sit in those compounds with her hands folded in her lap and her face arranged into stillness, and she would endure it. She would endure it because she still believed, even then, that the man she had married was still somewhere inside the man performing her failure for an audience. She was wrong. And she was the last person to find out exactly how wrong she was. Because behind her back, for longer than she had any idea, Michael had already gone. Not physically. He was still sleeping under the same roof, still eating the food she prepared, still accepting everything she gave. But emotionally and completely, he had already built another life. And the person he had built it with was not a stranger. It was not someone Ava could have prepared herself for. It was Sandra, her own younger sister, the girl who had shared her childhood bedroom, who had borrowed her clothes and kept her secrets, the sister Ava had defended in arguments she had no part in, protected in situations she had not created, and loved with the particular fierce and unconditional love that older sisters in Lagos carry, not as a choice but as a calling. Sandra knew the full price of what she was doing. She had been there before the wedding. She had sat in that church. She had heard the promise Michael made. She had held Ava's hand on difficult nights when Ava cried about her eyes and her future and her fear that she was becoming a burden to the man she loved. Sandra had been the keeper of Ava's most private fears. She had used every single one of them. This was the world Ava was living in on the morning everything finally broke open. She woke up to Michael standing in the middle of their bedroom with her car keys in his hand. He was fully dressed. There was a bag near the door. Not a large bag. He was not taking much. But it was packed with the particular decisiveness of someone who has already made up their mind and is simply waiting for the moment to begin. Ava sat up slowly and looked at him.
Michael, what is happening?
I am leaving.
He said it the way you say something you have been rehearsing for a long time. Flat, finished, without hesitation and without the basic courtesy of looking directly at her.
Leaving where? What do you mean you are leaving?
I am done, Ava. I have wasted enough time. You have nothing to offer me. You never did.
That is not true. Things are about to change. I have been trying. I have prospects. I just need a little more time, Michael.
I am taking the car. Consider it compensation for the years I stayed patient with a woman who was practically blind and getting worse every year.
Michael, after everything you promised me in that church, before God, before my family.
He picked up his bag. He walked to the door. He opened it. And when Ava called his name one final time, he did not turn around. He went to her car and he drove away. Ava stood at the door of that house and listened to the engine. She tracked the sound of it the way people with failing sight track sound, with her whole body, with a concentration that fully sighted people never need to develop. She listened until the engine faded completely to nothing. And then there was only the morning noise of the street and the enormous silence of a house that had been emptied of its promise. No car. Her purse had been on the passenger seat, inside the car that just drove away. No money, no job. But first, Ava had one more destination that morning, and what was waiting for her there was going to be the worst thing she had ever walked into. Ava continued on foot through Lagos towards Sandra's home. She was tired, and she was grieving, and she was holding herself together with nothing but the discipline of a woman who has been holding herself together for a very long time. When she arrived and knocked and the door opened, she stepped inside with the thin and fragile hope of one good thing before this terrible morning ended. And then she saw Michael. He was sitting in Sandra's living room with the ease of someone completely at home. Settled, comfortable, not as a visitor sitting near the door, sitting back, the way a man sits in a space where he belongs. He looked up when Ava entered. For one brief moment, something moved across his face, and then it was gone. Sandra appeared in the doorway behind him. The understanding did not arrive gently. It did not offer Ava the mercy of arriving slowly, piece by piece, in an order she could manage. It arrived all at once, complete and devastating, with the full weight of every small thing she had overlooked, every explanation she had accepted too easily, every late night and changed story and moment of distance she had chosen not to examine too closely. It filled the entire room. It took the air out of everything. Her husband, her younger sister, the sister who grew up eating from the same table, the sister who had sat in that church, who had held her hand in the dark, who had received every private prayer and every private tear as a gift of trust, and used all of it while smiling at her sister's face.
How long?
It was not a question. It came out of Ava quietly, like something that had already been decided. Sandra opened her mouth and closed it again.
How long?
Please let me explain. I never wanted this. I never wanted you to find out like this. You sat in that church. You held my hand. You knew everything, like my eyes, my fears, everything I told you in the dark. And you still...
Ava stopped. She breathed. And when she spoke again, her voice was not broken. It was not shaking. It was the voice of a woman who has found the exact words for something that has never had words before.
You were my sister. You were supposed to be my sister.
I am so sorry, Ava. I am truly...
Do not.
She turned toward Michael, the man who had made a promise before God and broken every word of it. She looked toward his shape in that chair and said simply,
I have no desire to cause a scene. I hope you find what you were looking for.
Then she turned back to Sandra one final time, and she said something so quietly it was barely a sound at all. But it landed in that room like the heaviest thing that had ever been set down inside it.
Being destroyed by the person you spent your whole life protecting is a wound that does not have a name. Because no one ever expects to need one.
Then she walked out. No slammed door, no speech, no performance of her pain for people who had already decided she did not matter. Just the sound of her footsteps, and then the silence after. She had not gone far when she heard someone running behind her. She slowed and turned. She recognized the voice before she could make out the shape. Mama Rosa, running through the street of Lagos, calling Ava's name with a breathlessness and an electric urgency that had absolutely nothing to do with lottery tickets. Mama Rosa grabbed both of Ava's hands and told her to listen carefully. She had been working her corner when the radio announced the winning number. The ticket she had given Ava that morning, that number was the winning jackpot number.
Listen to me carefully. The radio, they just announced the winning number, Ava. The ticket I gave you this morning, it is the winning jackpot. How much? 2 million.
$2 million.
Neither of them spoke for a moment. On the worst morning of her life, after her husband walked out with her car, after her sister's betrayal, after walking through Lagos on foot with nothing in her pocket and nowhere to go, God had placed a winning lottery ticket in her path.